The cashier's hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the phone. Blood pooled on the linoleum floor between aisles 3 and 4, spreading like spilled wine beneath the fluorescent lights of Murphy's general store. The man in the expensive suit stood perfectly still near the bread rack, watching her with eyes the color of winter fog. He didn't look panicked. He didn't look afraid. He looked like he was waiting for her to make a choice. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Claire Murphy had worked the register at her family's store for 6 years, ever since she dropped out of college to come home when her mother got sick. She'd seen plenty of things in that time. Drunk farmhands buying cigarettes at 2 in the morning. Teenagers shoplifting candy bars. Old-timers arguing about grain prices while their coffee went cold. But she'd never seen a man walk in with a bullet hole in his side, calmly select a loaf of bread, and approach the counter like he was picking up his Sunday groceries. The store sat at the edge of Millfield, population 2,847, where everyone knew everyone else's business before breakfast. It was the kind of place where nothing ever happened, where the biggest scandal in recent memory was when Pastor Harold got caught fishing on Sunday instead of preaching. The Murphy family had run the general store for 3 generations, surviving the Depression, 2 World Wars, and the slow death of small-town America. Claire's grandfather had built the place with his own hands in 1952. Her father had expanded it in the 80s. And now it was hers, whether she wanted it or not. It was 10:30 on a Thursday night. The store should have been closed an hour ago, but Claire had stayed late to restock shelves and avoid going home to the empty farmhouse where her father's absence still echoed in every room. He'd been dead for 8 months, and she still couldn't walk past his bedroom without feeling like she was trespassing. The bell above the door had chimed at exactly 10:15. Claire looked up from the inventory sheet she'd been pretending to focus on and saw him. Tall, maybe 6'2", with dark hair slicked back from a sharp-featured face. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her truck, and his shoes were polished to a mirror shine despite the dust that coated everything in Millfield this time of year. He moved with the careful precision of someone in pain, one hand pressed against his ribs, the other hanging loose at his side. She'd opened her mouth to tell him they were closed when she saw the blood. It had soaked through his white shirt, turning the fabric dark and wet. A crimson stain that spread with each breath he took. Her first instinct was to scream. Her second was to run. But something in the way he looked at her, calm and assessing, like he was measuring her worth in a single glance, kept her frozen behind the counter. "Sir, are you okay?" The words came out high and thin, nothing like her normal voice. He'd walked past her without answering, moving down the aisle toward the back of the store where they kept the bread and milk. She watched him select a loaf of whole wheat, tuck it under his arm, and walk back toward the register. His gait was steady despite the obvious injury. Each step measured and controlled. "That'll be $3.75, she heard herself say, and immediately felt like an idiot. The man was bleeding out in her store and she was worried about charging him for bread. He reached into his jacket pocket and she tensed, half expecting a gun. Instead, he pulled out a money clip thick with $100 bills. He peeled off 5 of them and laid them on the counter between them. "Keep the change." His voice was deep, accented with something she couldn't place. Italian maybe, or Greek. Smooth and controlled despite the blood loss that should have had him on the floor. "Sir, you need a hospital." She pushed the money back toward him. "You're hurt bad." "I'm aware." He didn't touch the bills. His eyes, pale gray and unsettlingly focused, never left her face. "Do you know how to stop bleeding?" The question caught her off guard. "What?" "Bleeding." His hand pressed harder against his side. "Do you know how to stop it?" Claire's mind raced. She'd taken a first aid course years ago when she worked as a camp counselor during high school. She remembered pressure, elevation, something about arterial wounds versus venous wounds. But that was textbook knowledge, clean diagrams in a manual, not a real person bleeding real blood all over her newly mopped floor. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I've never. He pulled his hand away from his side and she saw the wound clearly for the first time. A ragged hole in his white shirt, edges darkened with blood, still seeping despite the pressure he'd been applying. Not a gunshot, she realized with a strange clarity. A stab wound. Clean and deliberate. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. You have supplies here? His question was matter of fact, like he was asking for directions. Bandages, tape, antiseptic. She nodded slowly. We have a first aid kit. Behind the counter. My dad kept it for when workers cut themselves on boxes or, get it? It wasn't a request. Claire found herself moving before she'd consciously decided to obey, crouching down to pull the metal first aid kit from its shelf beneath the register. Her hands were shaking so badly the kit rattled when she set it on the counter. The man opened it methodically, sorting through the contents with one hand while keeping pressure on his wound with the other. Gauze pads, medical tape, a bottle of hydrogen peroxide that was probably expired. He pulled out what he needed and pushed the rest aside. You're going to help me, he said. It wasn't a question. I should call an ambulance. Her voice came out as a whisper. Or the police. Sheriff Dawson, no police. The words were soft but carried absolute authority. No ambulance. No hospital. Just you and your steady hands. My hands aren't steady. She held them up as proof. They were trembling like leaves in a storm. They will be. He peeled off his jacket with careful movements, wincing as the fabric pulled at his injury. When you understand what's at stake. What's at stake? She couldn't stop staring at the blood on his shirt, the way it had soaked through in concentric circles like a target. Your life. Mine. The lives of everyone in this town if you make the wrong choice in the next 5 minutes. His eyes locked onto hers. So I'll ask you again. Do you know how to stop bleeding? The fluorescent lights above them buzzed softly. Somewhere in the back of the store, the refrigerator unit kicked on with a hum. Outside, Millfield slept on, unaware that everything was about to change. Claire thought about her father, dead from a heart attack while checking fence lines on the north pasture. She thought about her mother, wasting away in hospice care while cancer ate through her lungs.
She thought about this store, this town, this life she'd never chosen but had inherited anyway. And she thought about the man standing in front of her, bleeding and dangerous and waiting for an answer. Yes, she lied. I know how to stop bleeding. Something that might have been approval flickered in his pale eyes. Good. Then we begin. He unbuttoned his shirt with one hand, revealing a torso marked with scars both old and new. The stab wound was on his left side, just below his ribs. Deep enough to be serious, but not deep enough to have hit anything vital. Not yet, anyway. I need you to clean it first. He handed her the hydrogen peroxide. Pour it directly into the wound. Don't hesitate. That's going to hurt. Yes. He braced himself against the counter. Do it anyway. Claire uncapped the bottle with shaking fingers. The sharp chemical smell made her eyes water. She looked at the wound, then at his face, then back at the wound. I've never done this before, she whispered. I know. His voice was surprisingly gentle. But you're going to do it now. Because if you don't, I die here. And when my men come looking for me and find my body in your store, they won't ask questions. They'll assume you killed me. And then this town, everyone you've ever known, becomes collateral damage in a war you don't understand. The threat was delivered in the same calm tone he'd used to order bread. Claire's throat went dry. Who are you? Someone you should be very afraid of. He paused. And someone who's giving you a chance to save us both. Now pour. She poured. The scream he bit back turned into a sharp hiss through clenched teeth. His hand slammed down on the counter hard enough to rattle the register. But he didn't pull away. Didn't flinch. Just stood there, muscles locked, while the peroxide foamed pink in his wound. "Keep going," he ground out. "All of it." Claire emptied the bottle, watching the chemical burn away blood and bacteria and God knew what else. When it was done, she set the empty container aside and reached for the gauze with hands that had stopped shaking. Fear had given way to focus. Training she didn't know she had taken over. She pressed the gauze against the wound, applying firm steady pressure the way the camp counselor manual had taught her. The man's breath hitched but he made no other sound. "You're doing well," he said after a moment. "Better than I expected." "You expected me to panic." "Most people would." His eyes studied her face with unnerving intensity. "You're not most people, are you, Claire Murphy?" The use of her name made her freeze. "How do you know?" "I know everything. The store, your father's death, your mother in hospice, the $50,000 in debt you inherited along with this place." He gestured around them with his free hand. "I know you dropped out of college to come home. Know you've been trying to sell this building for 6 months with no buyers. Know you're trapped here just as surely as if someone locked the doors." Her hands tightened on the gauze. "Who are you?" "My name is Victor Castellano." The name meant nothing to her but he said it like it should. "I own things. Businesses, properties, people. I came to Millfield because I own something here, too. Something your father was supposed to protect from me before he died." The words landed like stones in still water, sending ripples of understanding through Claire's mind. Her father's mysterious business trips. The locked filing cabinet in his office she'd never been able to open. The way Sheriff Dawson had looked at her during the funeral, like he pitted her for something beyond grief. "What did my father have to do with you?" Victor's smile was thin and humorless. "He stored things for me. Kept them safe. In exchange, I kept this store afloat when it should have gone under 10 years ago. A mutually beneficial arrangement." "What things?" "Documents. Records. Insurance policies, you might call them. Things that certain people would pay a great deal of money to obtain or destroy." His hand covered hers on the gauze. "Your pressure is good. Keep it there while I tape." She held the gauze in place while he worked, his movements efficient despite the pain he must have been in. He wrapped medical tape around his torso in tight spirals, securing the bandage, building layers. "Where are these documents now?" Claire asked. "That's what I came to find out." Victor's eyes met hers. "Your father died before he could tell me their location. I assumed he'd left instructions, a map, something. But my people found nothing in his house or his office here. Maybe there's nothing to find. Maybe he destroyed them." "No." The word was absolute. "He wouldn't have. Those documents keep me alive, and he knew that. Which means they're here, somewhere in this town, hidden where only someone who knew him well could find them. And you think I know where they are? I think you're going to help me look." He finished taping the bandage and pulled his blood-stained shirt closed. "Because now you're involved, Claire. The moment you saw me, the moment you chose to help instead of run, you became part of this. I didn't choose anything. You threatened me. I gave you a choice." He buttoned his shirt slowly. "Help me and live. Refuse and die. You chose wisely." Outside, headlights swept across the store's front windows. A car pulling into the gravel parking lot. Then another. Then a third. Victor's expression hardened. "They found me faster than expected." "Who?" "The same people who did this." He gestured to his bandaged side. "The same people who will kill you if they find you with me." He grabbed her wrist. "Is there a back exit?" "Yes." "Storage room." "But, show me." "Now." Claire led him through the narrow aisles toward the rear of the store, her mind spinning. Nothing about this night made sense. For hours ago her biggest problem had been whether to order more canned beans. Now she was hiding a wounded criminal from people who apparently wanted him dead. The storage room was exactly what it sounded like. Concrete floor, metal shelving units stacked with overstock, a loading dock door that hadn't been opened in months. Victor moved to the small window set high in the wall, peering out into the darkness beyond. 3 cars, he said quietly. At least 9 men. Professional. What do they want? Me. Dead. And anyone who helped me. He turned from the window. Which means you need to leave. Right now. I can't just leave my store. Your store or your life, Claire. Choose quickly. The sound of the front door chime echoed through the building. Footsteps on linoleum. Multiple sets. Moving with purpose. Victor pulled something from his jacket. A gun. Small, dark, lethal. He pressed it into her hand before she could protest. You know how to use this? No. Point and squeeze. Simple. His hand closed over hers on the weapon. The safety is off. Don't use it unless you have no other choice. This is insane. Yes. His pale eyes held hers. Welcome to my world. Now go. Out the loading dock. Run west toward the cornfields. There's an old barn about half a mile out. Hide there until sunrise. If I'm not dead by then, I'll come find you. And if you are dead? Then run farther. Change your name. Disappear. Because they'll come for you next. The footsteps were getting closer. Voices now, speaking in a language she didn't recognize. Victor moved back toward the storage room door, positioning himself behind a shelving unit with clear line of sight to the entrance. Go, he said again, not looking at her. And Claire, when this is over, we're going to have a long conversation about your father and his secrets. Because I suspect you know more than you think you do. She wanted to argue. Wanted to demand answers. Wanted to wake up from whatever nightmare she'd stumbled into. Instead, she unlocked the loading dock door and slipped out into the cool September night. Behind her, she heard the storage room door crash open. Shouting. The sharp crack of gunfire. Claire ran. The cornfield swallowed her whole, stalks whispering against her clothes as she pushed through them. Her breath came in ragged gasps. The gun in her hand felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Behind her, more gunshots split the night. The sound echoing across the flat farmland like thunder. She didn't know who Victor Castellano was. Didn't know what her father had been hiding or why. Didn't know if she'd live through the night. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. Her life in Millfield, the quiet, predictable existence she'd been sleepwalking through since her father's death, was over. Whatever came next would be written in blood and secrets and choices she couldn't take back. The old barn appeared ahead, a dark silhouette against the star-filled sky. Claire pushed through the last row of corn and stumbled toward it, her legs shaking with exhaustion and terror. She'd spent her whole life trying to escape this town. Now she was running through its fields in the dark, clutching a gun, hiding from men who wanted her dead because of secrets her father had taken to his grave. The barn door hung crooked on rusted hinges. Claire slipped inside and collapsed against the wall, sliding down to sit in the dusty straw. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Blood, not hers, stained her hands where she'd held the gauze against Victor's wound. She thought about the man in the expensive suit who'd walked into her store bleeding and calm. The way he'd looked at her like he was seeing something she didn't see in herself. The absolute certainty in his voice when he said her father had been keeping secrets. Claire pulled out her phone. No signal this far from town. Even if there had been, who would she call? The sheriff who'd given her pitying looks at the funeral. The friends who'd slowly drifted away after she came home from college. She was alone. Truly alone for the first time since her father died. Or maybe she'd been alone all along and was just now realizing it. Outside, the wind moved through the corn with a sound like whispered warnings. Claire sat in the darkness, gun in one hand, phone in the other, and waited for sunrise or death, whichever came first. Dawn came slow and cold, the kind of gray light that made the world look washed out and unreal. Claire hadn't slept. She'd sat in that barn all night, listening to every creak of old wood, every rustle in the corn, every distant sound that might have been a car or a gunshot or just her imagination turning fear into phantoms. The gun sat heavy in her lap. She'd checked it once in the darkness, fumbling with the mechanism until she figured out how to see if it was loaded. It was. 9 bullets. She'd counted them twice, then put it back together with shaking hands. When the sun finally broke through the horizon, painting the fields in shades of amber and rust, Claire heard footsteps outside the barn. Slow, deliberate, the crunch of boots on dry earth. She raised the gun with both hands, the way she'd seen in movies, finger on the trigger, heart hammering so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. The barn door swung open. Victor Castellano stood silhouetted against the morning light, his white shirt now completely ruined with dried blood, his suit jacket gone. But he was alive. Standing. Walking. His pale eyes found her immediately in the shadows. "You can lower the gun, Claire." His voice was rougher than it had been the night before, edged with exhaustion and pain. "Unless you've decided to shoot me after all." She lowered it slowly, her arms aching from holding the position. "What happened?" "They're dead. All 9 of them." He moved into the barn, favoring his injured side. "My men arrived 20 minutes after you left. Cleaned up the mess. Your store's intact, though you'll need to replace some shelving. You killed 9 people in my store. They would have killed me. And then they would have killed you." He leaned against a support beam, breathing carefully. "Consider it pest control." The casual way he said it made her stomach turn. Those were human beings. Those were soldiers. Men who chose this life knowing exactly how it might end. His eyes held hers. "Don't waste your sympathy on people who wouldn't have hesitated to put a bullet in your head." Claire stood, brushing straw from her jeans. Her legs were stiff from sitting all night. "I want answers. Real ones. Who are you? What did my father have that's worth killing for?" Victor studied her for a long moment, weighing something in his mind. Then he gestured to an overturned crate. "Sit. This conversation requires more than a few sentences." She sat. He remained standing, too restless or too injured to relax. "Your father, Thomas Murphy, was more than a store owner." Victor's voice took on a different quality, like he was reciting facts he'd memorized long ago. 20 years ago, he worked for me. Not directly, but as part of a network. People who could move things, hide things, keep records that needed to disappear from official channels. My father was a farmer. A store owner. He wasn't a criminal. He was both. A slight smile touched Victor's lips. "The best people in my business are the ones no one suspects. A farmer in a small town, a man everyone trusts, who better to hold documents that could destroy empires." "What kind of documents?" "Evidence. Transactions. Names of people in very high places who've done very illegal things." Victor's gaze drifted to the barn's open door, to the fields beyond. "Politicians, judges, law enforcement. People who've taken money from me and others like me. People who've committed crimes and need those crimes to stay buried. And my father kept these records. For insurance. Mine and his. As long as those documents existed, neither of us could be touched. If I died, they'd be released. If your father died, same thing. Mutually assured destruction. It kept us both safe. Except my father did die." Claire's throat tightened. "And you're still here. Because the documents haven't been released. Which means either your father set up a dead man's switch that hasn't triggered yet, or he hid them somewhere expecting to retrieve them later." Victor pushed off from the beam, wincing. "Either way, they're still out there. Still dangerous. And now people know I don't have them, which makes me vulnerable. So you came here to find them." "I came here to find the only person who might know where your father would hide something precious. His daughter. I don't know anything." Claire stood, anger flaring. "I came home from college because my mother was dying. I stayed because my father had a heart attack in the middle of a field, and by the time anyone found him it was too late. I inherited a failing store, a mountain of debt, and a town that looks at me like I'm supposed to have all the answers. But I don't. I don't know anything about secret documents or criminal networks or any of this. Your father never mentioned anything unusual? Never asked you to remember something specific? No. The word came out harder than she intended. He barely talked to me the last 2 years of his life. After Mom died, he just shut down. Worked the fields, ran the store, came home and drank himself to sleep. Whatever secrets he had, he took them with him. Victor's expression shifted, something that might have been sympathy crossing his features. I'm sorry for your loss. He meant it, which somehow made it worse. But grief doesn't change facts. Those documents exist. They're hidden somewhere in this town. And if we don't find them before the people who came for me last night regroup, a lot more blood is going to spill. Let it. Claire moved toward the door. I'm done with this. Done with you. Go find your documents yourself. She made it 3 steps before his voice stopped her. They'll come for you regardless. She turned. What? The men who attacked me last night worked for the Volkov family. Russians. Brutal, efficient, patient. They know you helped me. Know your face, your name, your connection to your father. Victor's pale eyes were steady on hers. Even if you walk away now, even if you never see me again, they'll come. Not today, maybe not tomorrow. But eventually, they'll decide you're a loose end. And they don't leave loose ends. The morning sun streamed through gaps in the barn's walls, painting stripes of light across the dusty floor. Claire's hands clenched into fists at her sides. So I'm trapped. No matter what I choose. You were trapped the moment your father accepted my money 20 years ago. Victor's voice was quiet. I'm just the one telling you the cage has always been there. She wanted to scream. To run. To wake up from this nightmare and find herself back in the simple misery of debt and loneliness and small-town suffocation. At least that pain had been familiar. If I help you find these documents, then what? What happens to me? You get protection. Resources. A way out of this town if you want it. He paused. And answers about your father. Who he really was. Why he made the choices he made. That last part hooked her more than the promises of safety or money. She'd spent 8 months wondering why her father had become a stranger. Why he'd pushed her away. Why he'd died alone in a field with secrets she'd never know. Where do we start? Victor's expression shifted, approval and calculation mixing in equal measure. The store. Your father's office. Wherever he spent time alone. We look for anything out of place. Hidden compartments, false bottoms, coded messages. Men like your father always leave breadcrumbs, even if they don't mean to. They walked back through the cornfields as the sun climbed higher, burning off the morning chill. Claire's mind churned with questions she didn't know how to ask. Victor moved beside her, silent and watchful, one hand pressed against his bandaged side. When they reached the edge of town, Claire saw the change immediately. More cars than usual on Main Street. People standing in small groups, talking in hushed voices. Sheriff Dawson's cruiser parked outside the general store. Victor noticed it too. He caught her arm, pulling her to a stop behind an old equipment shed. Listen carefully. His voice was low, urgent. You went home after closing the store last night. Didn't see anything unusual. Don't know anything about gunfire or damage. If anyone asks, you were exhausted and went straight to bed. They're going to find blood. Bodies. They'll find nothing. My men are thorough. Whatever evidence existed is gone by now. He studied her face. Can you lie convincingly? I've been lying about being fine for 8 months. I think I can manage one more. Good. He released her arm. Go in through the front. Act surprised if there's damage. Call me if you find anything unusual. He pressed a business card into her hand, plain white with just a phone number embossed in black. Memorize it, then destroy the card. Claire pocketed it. Where will you be? Watching. He melted back into the corn so quickly she barely saw him go, leaving her alone on the edge of town with a head full of secrets and a heart full of dread. She walked toward Main Street, forcing her steps to stay casual, normal. Mrs. Henderson was sweeping the sidewalk outside the diner. Mr. Patterson was unlocking the hardware store. Everything looked exactly like it always did, except for the knot of people gathered outside Murphy's General. Claire, thank God. Sheriff Dawson spotted her first, his weathered face creased with concern. I was about to drive out to your place. What's wrong? She let confusion color her voice. Why are you all here? There was an incident last night. The sheriff gestured toward the store. Someone broke in after closing. Made a real mess of the back storage area. Claire pushed through the small crowd, her pulse racing. The front of the store looked normal, but when she peered through the window, she could see overturned shelves in the distance, scattered boxes, signs of the violence that had erupted there just hours before. Oh my God. She pressed a hand to her mouth, the shock on her face only half feigned. When did this happen? We got a call around 11 from a trucker passing through. Said he heard what sounded like firecrackers. By the time I got here, whoever it was had cleared out. Sheriff Dawson's eyes searched her face. You didn't hear anything? Your apartment is right upstairs. I took sleeping pills. Claire met his gaze directly. I've been having trouble since Dad died. The doctor prescribed something to help. I was out cold by 10. It was a good lie, grounded in truth. Everyone in town knew she'd been struggling. The sheriff's expression softened. Well, you're lucky you were sleeping then. Could have been dangerous if you'd come down to investigate. He pulled out a notepad. I'll need you to take a look inside, see if anything's missing. The store's interior was exactly as Victor had promised. Damaged but cleaned. The floor where blood had pooled showed only the faint residue of harsh chemical cleaners. The shelving units that had been destroyed in the firefight were shoved against one wall, ready to be hauled away. Someone had even restocked the fallen merchandise, though haphazardly. But there were no bodies. No blood. No evidence that 9 men had died here. Looks like they were looking for something specific. Sheriff Dawson walked beside her, studying the damage. Storage room got hit hardest. Your dad's office too. Claire's heart skipped. Dad's office? Back door was forced. Dawson led her to the small room at the rear of the store where her father had done paperwork and made phone calls away from customers. The door hung crooked on its hinges, the lock mechanism destroyed. Inside, file cabinets had been opened, papers scattered across the old wooden desk. This wasn't random vandalism. Dawson's voice was grim. Someone was searching for something. Claire moved into the office, her mind racing. The room looked exactly as it had the day her father died. She'd barely touched it in 8 months, too overwhelmed with keeping the store running to sort through his belongings. Photographs on the walls showed 3 generations of Murphys standing in front of the store. Her grandfather's old adding machine sat on the corner of the desk. A coffee mug with "World's Best Dad" faded on the side held pens and pencils. But now someone had been through everything. Every drawer. Every file. Every possible hiding place. Do you know what they might have been looking for? Dawson asked. No idea. Claire picked up a framed photo from the desk, her father and mother on their wedding day, young and hopeful. Dad never kept anything valuable here. Just receipts and inventory records. The sheriff made notes, asking questions she answered mechanically. How long would she need to clean up? Did she want to file an insurance claim? Would she feel safe reopening? She said the right things, played the role of confused victim, all while her eyes scanned the office for anything Victor's enemies might have missed. Or anything her father might have left for her to find. When Sheriff Dawson finally left, promising to increase patrols past the store, Claire locked the front door and sagged against it. Her whole body was shaking now, adrenaline and fear catching up with her all at once. "You did well." Victor's voice came from the back of the store, making her jump. He stepped out from behind a display of canned goods where he'd apparently been hiding the entire time. "Very convincing. Were you here the whole time?" I needed to hear what the sheriff knew. He moved toward her, studying her pale face. "You should sit down before you fall down." "I'm fine." "You're terrified and exhausted and operating on no sleep." He guided her to the stool behind the register. "Sit. Breathe. We have time." "Time before what?" "Before more killers show up? Before the Russians you mentioned decide I'm worth torturing for information I don't have? Before you make yourself sick with panic." His hand rested briefly on her shoulder, warm and steady. "Fear is useful. Terror is paralyzing. Right now, I need you sharp." She looked up at him, this dangerous stranger who'd walked into her life less than 12 hours ago and blown it apart. "What if we don't find these documents? What if my father destroyed them or they never existed in the first place?" "They exist." Victor's certainty was absolute. "And we're going to find them. Starting with this office." They spent the next 2 hours searching methodically. Every book pulled from shelves and shaken. Every drawer removed to check for false bottoms. Every floorboard tested for hollow spaces beneath. Claire found receipts dating back a decade, her father's handwriting growing shakier in recent years. She found photographs of herself as a child, riding on her grandfather's tractor, grinning gap-toothed at the camera. She found a letter her mother had written to her father during a hospital stay, telling him how much she loved him, how proud she was of the life they'd built together. But she found nothing that looked like criminal records or evidence or insurance policies against powerful men. Victor worked in silence, his movements methodical despite his injury. He checked the ceiling tiles, the baseboards, the back of every picture frame. His pale eyes missed nothing, cataloging every detail of the small office like he was committing it to memory. It was Claire who found the first real clue, and she almost missed it. She was replacing books on a shelf when one of them, a thick volume on crop rotation techniques, fell open to a page marked with a folded piece of paper. Not a bookmark, she realized. The paper had been glued to the spine, designed to look like part of the book's binding. "Victor," she called softly. He was beside her in 2 strides. "What is it?" She carefully peeled the paper free, unfolding it to reveal her father's handwriting. Not a letter. A series of numbers and words that made no sense together. "Coordinates," Victor said immediately, studying the sequence. "And a date. September 15th. That's next week." Claire frowned. "What happens next week?" "Harvest Festival. The annual celebration Millfield threw every year as summer turned to fall. 3 days of food, music, and small-town tradition. Your father used to organize it. He helped. But he stopped after Mom died. Said it didn't matter anymore." Victor's eyes were sharp on the paper. "This matters." He ran his finger along the numbers. "These coordinates are local. Somewhere within 10 miles of here." He looked at Claire. "Do you recognize them?" "No." But she pulled out her phone, opening a maps application. When she input the coordinates, a location popped up immediately. Her breath caught. "That's our old property. The farmhouse where I grew up. The one you don't live in anymore. We moved into the apartment above the store after Dad had his heart attack. Said it was easier than driving back and forth. The farmhouse has been empty for 8 months. Not empty." Victor's voice was grim. "Guarded. Your father wouldn't have left coordinates to an abandoned building unless something there was worth protecting. The old Murphy farmhouse sat 3 miles outside town, down a gravel road that hadn't been maintained in years." Claire drove them in her battered pickup truck. Victor slouched in the passenger seat, one hand pressed against his side where blood had started seeping through the bandages again. "You need medical attention," she said for the 3rd time. "I need those documents." Everything else is secondary. You'll die of infection if we don't treat that wound properly. I've survived worse. His eyes were on the passing fields, corn ready for harvest, waving in the afternoon breeze. Your father loved this land. He did. Claire's throat tightened. Used to take me out to check on the crops when I was little. Taught me how to read the soil, how to know when rain was coming. He said the land remembers everything. Every season, every drought, every flood. Said it keeps better records than any book. Smart man. Victor glanced at her. Did he teach you to love it too? I thought I hated it. All through high school, I couldn't wait to leave. College was my escape. She turned down the familiar road, gravel crunching under the tires. Then Mom got sick and everything changed. Came home for a visit and never left. Do you regret it? Every day. The admission came out before she could stop it. But I regret not being here when she needed me more. The farmhouse appeared ahead, a 2-story structure that had been handsome once. White paint peeling now, porch sagging, windows dark and empty. The barn beside it listed slightly to one side, red paint faded to rust. Fields stretched in all directions, untended, going wild. Claire killed the engine and sat for a moment, staring at the place where she'd grown up. Where her parents had loved each other and raised her and built a life that seemed solid until it all fell apart. Are you ready? Victor's voice was gentle. No. But she opened the door anyway. Let's get this over with. The front door stuck, swollen with humidity and disuse. Victor shouldered it open with a wince, and they stepped into the dusty silence of abandonment. Furniture still in place, covered with sheets. Family photographs on the walls, frozen moments of happiness that felt like someone else's memories now. According to the coordinates, we're looking for something specific. Victor pulled out his phone, checking the location. The basement. Whatever your father hid, it's below ground. The basement door was locked, which was unusual. Claire didn't remember it ever being locked when they lived here. She searched for the key, checking the usual places, above the door frame, under the mat, in the kitchen drawer, but found nothing. Victor solved the problem by kicking the door open, lock splintering from the old wood frame. Subtle, Claire muttered. Effective. He started down the stairs into darkness below. Claire followed, her hand trailing along the rough stone wall. The basement smelled of earth and mold and something else, something chemical she couldn't identify. At the bottom of the stairs, Victor found a pull string and yanked it. A single bare bulb illuminated a space she barely recognized. The basement of her childhood had been storage. Old furniture, canning jars, her grandfather's tools. Now it looked like something else entirely. One wall had been cleared, a heavy metal safe installed where boxes of Christmas decorations used to be. The floor showed scuff marks where furniture had been dragged aside, then replaced to hide the evidence of disturbance. Your father was busier than you knew. Victor moved to the safe, studying the combination lock. Do you know the code? No. I didn't even know this was here. He tried several combinations anyway. Birthdays, anniversaries, the year the store opened. Nothing worked. After the 5th attempt, he stepped back, frustrated. We could drill it, Claire suggested. Or call a locksmith. Both of those take time we don't have. And a locksmith would ask questions. He studied the safe from different angles. There has to be another way. Your father would have left you access in case something happened to him. He didn't leave me anything. Her voice cracked. He died without saying goodbye. Without explaining. Without giving me anything except debts and secrets in this mess. Victor turned to look at her, really look at her, and something in his expression softened. My father died when I was 16. Murdered by men who wanted what he'd built. He knew it was coming, but he never warned me, never prepared me, just kept living like he was immortal until the night they shot him in our kitchen. I'm sorry. Don't be. It made me who I am. Hard. Careful. unwilling to trust anyone who hasn't proven themselves in blood. He moved back to the safe. But it also taught me that fathers protect their children in ways we don't always understand at the time. Your father hid this safe. Locked it. But he would have left you a way in. Claire looked around the basement with new eyes. If her father wanted to leave her access, where would he put it? Somewhere she'd look. Somewhere that meant something to both of them. Her gaze landed on an old wooden workbench against the far wall, her grandfather's, where she'd learned to use tools, where her father had taught her to fix things instead of replacing them. She walked over to it, running her hands along the scarred surface. Behind the bench, barely visible in the dim light, someone had carved something into the stone wall. She pushed the bench aside, revealing letters and numbers scratched deep into the rock. Not random. Her father's handwriting, crude but unmistakable. For my girl who fixes what's broken. The numbers that followed made her eyes sting with tears. Her birth date. Day, month, year. Victor appeared beside her. Try it. She went to the safe, her hands shaking as she entered the combination. The lock clicked. The door swung open. Inside were stacks of documents in plastic sleeves, organized with the same precision her father had used for everything. USB drives in a sealed box. Photographs of men in suits shaking hands with people Claire recognized from news reports. Ledgers filled with numbers and dates and transactions that probably added up to crimes she couldn't begin to calculate. This is it. Victor reached for the contents, his face intense. This is everything. But Claire's attention had caught on something else. A thick envelope at the bottom of the safe, separate from the criminal evidence, with her name written across it in her father's hand. She pulled it out, her heart hammering. Inside were two things. A letter and a key. Victor watched as she unfolded the letter, giving her privacy despite his obvious impatience to catalog the documents. Her father's writing filled 3 pages, the penmanship shaky, like he'd written it while upset or ill or both. My dearest Claire, if you're reading this, I'm gone and you've found what I spent 20 years protecting. I'm sorry. Those words don't mean much, but they're all I have left to give you. I'm sorry for the choices I made. Sorry for the life I pulled you into without your knowledge. Sorry for dying before I could explain. Her vision blurred. She kept reading. When your mother got cancer, we had no insurance. The treatment cost more than everything we owned. I was going to lose her in the store and the farm, everything our family built. That's when Victor Castellano found me. Offered me money for a simple service. Just hold some documents. Keep them safe. Don't ask questions. I took the deal because I was desperate and stupid and terrified. The money saved your mother's life for 3 more years. Bought her treatment, gave us time. But it cost me my soul and now it's costing you your peace. The documents in this safe are insurance. Against powerful people who've done terrible things. If anything happens to Victor, they're meant to be released. If anything happens to you, the same. It's protection, but it's also poison. Once you know what's in there, you can't unknow it. The key in this envelope opens a safety deposit box at First National Bank in the city. Box 417. Inside is money. Enough to pay off the store's debts. Enough to start over somewhere far from here. Enough to buy the freedom I stole from you when I made my deal with the devil. Leave Millfield, Claire. Sell the store. Take the money and go live the life you were supposed to have. Don't be like me, trapped by choices made in desperation, dying alone in a field with regrets heavy as stones. I love you more than I knew how to show. More than I deserved to. You were always too good for this place. For me. Be better. Be free. Dad. Claire read it twice, tears streaming down her face. Then she folded it carefully and put it back in the envelope. Victor was watching her, his expression unreadable. What does it say? That my father made a deal with you to save my mother's life. That he regretted it every day. That he wanted me to take money and run far away from all of this. Will you? She looked at the safe full of evidence. At the documents that represented 20 years of secrets and crimes and mutually assured destruction. At the man who'd walked into her store bleeding and dragged her into a world she'd never known existed. Then she looked at the letter again. At her father's shaky handwriting. At the love and regret bleeding through every word. "No," she said quietly. "I won't run. He did that for me, kept secrets, made terrible choices, destroyed himself protecting me from consequences I didn't know existed. Running would make all of it meaningless." Victor's pale eyes held hers. "You understand what you're choosing? This life, this world, there's no going back once you're truly in it. I've been in it since I was born. I just didn't know it." She picked up one of the document folders, scanning the contents. Financial records showing bribes to state senators. Photographs of a federal judge accepting envelopes from known criminals. Evidence of money laundering through dozens of legitimate businesses. "My father died protecting this. Protecting you. The least I can do is help finish what he started." "And what is it you think we're starting?" Claire met his gaze directly. "Surviving. Together. Because you're right. I can't go back to being just a store owner in a small town. Not after last night. Not after this." She gestured to the safe. "So if I'm stuck in your world, I might as well understand it." Something that might have been respect flickered in Victor's expression. Or maybe admiration. "Your father said you were stubborn. You knew him well? Well enough to trust him with my life. And now, it seems, to trust you with the same." They spent the next hour carefully documenting and photographing everything in the safe. Victor made encrypted backups on multiple devices, then sealed the original documents back in their plastic sleeves. The whole time, Claire watched and learned, asking questions he answered with surprising patience. "What happens now?" she asked as they prepared to leave the basement. "Now we secure these properly. Make sure the right copies go to the right people. Ensure that if anything happens to me or you, the dead man's switch activates exactly as it should." He looked at her. "You'll need training. How to protect yourself. How to move in my world without becoming a target. And the Russians who want you dead will learn that touching you means facing consequences worse than death." His voice carried absolute certainty. "You're under my protection now, Claire Murphy. Anyone who comes for you comes for me." Reeves tried to argue, to cajole, to threaten. She listened patiently, then ended the call. Turned off the phone. Removed the SIM card and broke it in half. "That's it then," Victor said. "You've made your choice. We've made our choice." She corrected. "This partnership, this alliance, it goes both ways now. You protect me. I protect your insurance. We keep each other alive." Something shifted in his expression. Not quite a smile, but close. "Your father would have been proud. Or possibly horrified. Probably both." She felt lighter somehow, despite the weight of what she'd just committed to. "When do we leave?" "Leave? You can't stay in Millfield forever. Your business, your life, it's elsewhere. And I can't run the store and exist in your world simultaneously. Something has to give." "What are you proposing?" "I sell the store. Quietly, to someone local who'll keep it running. Take the money from my father's safety deposit box and use it to start over." She met his eyes. "Somewhere I can learn properly. Become useful in your organization instead of just protected cargo." "You'd leave this place? Everything your family built?" "My family built it on secrets and sacrifice. Maybe it's time to build something different. Something honest, even if it's honest crime." Victor laughed, a real laugh that transformed his face. "You're either very brave or very foolish. Probably both. Like father, like daughter." The Harvest Festival came on schedule, 3 days of celebration that Millfield clung to like proof they still mattered. Claire walked the fairgrounds on opening night, taking in sights she'd seen every year of her life. The Ferris wheel spinning against the sunset. Children running with cotton candy. The smell of fried dough and livestock and autumn approaching. Mrs. Henderson hugged her at the diner's food stall. Your father loved this festival. Always said it reminded him why he stayed. Why did he stay? Claire asked. He could have sold the store any time. Left for somewhere easier. Because Murphys have always been here. Mrs. Henderson's eyes were knowing. 3 generations of your blood in this soil. That means something, even when it's hard. Or especially when it's hard. The older woman squeezed her hand. Whatever you decide about your future, honey, know that you made him proud. Coming home when your mama was sick. Keeping the store running after he passed. That took strength. Claire thought about the documents hidden in encrypted drives. About the violence that had erupted in her store. About the choices she'd made that would have broken her father's heart even as they honored his sacrifice. I'm selling the store, she said quietly. Found a buyer this week. The Williams family. They'll keep it running, keep the name. But I need to move on. Sadness crossed Mrs. Henderson's face, but also understanding. Sometimes moving on is the bravest thing we can do. Where will you go? Somewhere new. Somewhere I can be useful instead of just surviving. You were always useful, child. Just took you a while to see it. That night, Claire stood in the empty store after closing, walking through aisles she'd known since childhood. Her grandfather had stocked these shelves. Her father had mopped these floors. 3 generations of Murphys had served this town, built relationships, created something that mattered in small daily ways. She thought about burning it all down, destroying the evidence of her father's double life. But that felt like cowardice. Instead, she negotiated a sale that would preserve the store's history while freeing her from its weight. The Williams family had cash and good hearts. They'd honor what the Murphys had built even as they made it their own. The money from the sale, combined with what her father had left in the safety deposit box, would be enough. Enough to pay every debt. Enough to start fresh. Enough to build a life that was hers instead of inherited. Victor found her in her father's office, boxing up the last of his personal effects. The photographs, the coffee mug, the adding machine that had calculated 3 generations of transactions. Everything's arranged, he said. New identity documents. Apartment in the city. Position in my organization that uses your skills without exposing you unnecessarily. What skills? I'm a store clerk who took 1 first aid course. You're observant. Intelligent. Calm under pressure. You learn quickly and lie convincingly. His eyes held hers. And you understand something most people in my world never grasp. That loyalty isn't purchased, it's earned through sacrifice and trust. My father taught me that. Without meaning to. The best lessons usually are unintentional. He helped her seal the last box. When do you want to leave? After the festival. After I've said goodbye properly. The last night of Harvest Festival ended with fireworks over the fairgrounds, colors blooming against the dark sky like flowers that lived and died in seconds. Claire watched from the roof of the store, Victor beside her, his men stationed discreetly around the perimeter. It's beautiful, she said. I'd forgotten how beautiful. You'll come back someday. Visit. See how the town's changed. Maybe. But she knew she probably wouldn't. Leaving meant leaving completely. Cutting ties cleanly so no one in Millfield became collateral damage for her choices. Below, the town celebrated, unaware that one of their own was preparing to disappear into a world they'd never understand. Sheriff Dawson probably suspected something, the way he'd looked at her during his last visit. But he'd asked no questions, accepted her story, let her keep her secrets. Small-town courtesy, or maybe recognition that some things were better left unknown. Claire's heart stopped. Was anyone hurt? No. Happened at night, electrical fire they think. The Williams family got out safe, but the building's a total loss. He watched her face carefully. They're rebuilding, but it'll take time. She thought about 3 generations of her family, gone to ash and memory. The photographs on the walls. Her grandfather's adding machine. The coffee mug with faded letters. All of it erased like it had never existed. Do they need help? Financial help? Already taken care of. Marco's expression gave nothing away. Anonymous donation covered the insurance shortfall. They'll rebuild bigger, better. The town's rallying around them. Claire nodded, throat tight. Thank you. Don't thank me. Thank Salvatore. He said debts to the Murphy family still stand, even when there's no Murphy left to collect. That night, Claire stood in her fields under stars that looked the same as they had in Millfield. The corn whispered around her, tall and ready for harvest. She thought about her father, wondered what he'd think of the choices she'd made, the life she'd built from the ruins of his secrets. The land didn't care about names or identities or the weight of inheritance. It just wanted tending. Wanted hands willing to work it, minds willing to learn its rhythms, hearts willing to weather its seasons. In that way, it was more honest than any human relationship. Victor found her there an hour later, following the path she'd worn through the rows. They stood together in comfortable silence, listening to the night sounds, the insects and distant highway and wind moving through crops. Regrets? He asked eventually. Fewer than I expected. She looked at him, this dangerous man who'd walked into her store bleeding and changed everything. Some days I miss who I was. Most days I'm grateful for who I've become. Your father would understand that. Maybe. Or maybe he'd be horrified. Hard to know. He protected you the only way he knew how. Victor's voice was quiet. Made impossible choices so you'd have options. That's what parents do when they love their children more than they love themselves. Claire thought about the documents still secured in encrypted drives. Insurance that kept Victor alive and kept her safe by association. Her father's last gift, though he'd probably wanted her to destroy it, to break free completely. Instead, she'd chosen to honor it. To become part of the world he'd tried to shield her from. Maybe that was its own kind of freedom. Years passed the way they do on farms, measured in planting and harvest, in seasons cycling through unchanging and ever-changing all at once. Claire's hair grew longer, then shorter when she cut it herself in the bathroom mirror. Lines appeared at the corners of her eyes, earned by squinting at distant weather in early mornings. Her hands grew calloused again, strong again, familiar again. Ridgemont accepted her fully somewhere in the 5th year. Stopped calling her the city woman. Started just calling her Sarah. Invited her to town meetings and asked her opinion on local matters. She served on the agricultural board, helped organize the annual harvest festival, became part of the community fabric in ways that felt earned rather than inherited. Victor's visits became less frequent as his business expanded, but they stayed connected. Phone calls every week. Video conferences for property decisions. And sometimes, late at night, conversations that weren't about business at all. About loss and choice and the weight of living with consequences. About whether they'd become who they were meant to be or just who circumstances had demanded. On the 10th anniversary of her father's death, Claire drove back to Millfield. Not as Sarah Chen, but as herself. She wore simple clothes, tied her hair back, and parked outside the cemetery like she'd done it 1,000 times before. The new Murphy's General Store rose where the old one had stood, bigger and brighter, thriving under the Williams family's management. Claire didn't go in. Instead, she walked to the cemetery, to the plot where her parents rested under a shared headstone. Someone had left fresh flowers. Mrs. Henderson probably, or one of the other old-timers who remembered. Claire added her own, wildflowers from her fields in Ridgemont, and sat on the grass between the graves. I understand now, she said quietly. Why you made the choices you did. Why you kept secrets and died protecting them. You were trying to give me options, even if it meant I'd never understand the cost. The wind moved through the cemetery trees, carrying the scent of approaching rain. I used those options differently than you hoped. Built a life in the world you tried to keep me from. But I think you'd be proud anyway. Because I'm not just surviving anymore. I'm living deliberately. Making choices with eyes open. She sat there until the rain came, soft at first, then harder. Sat until she was soaked through and the flowers were bent with water and the earth smelled like memory and promise mixed together. When she finally stood, she felt lighter. The weight of inheritance hadn't disappeared, but it had shifted, settled into a place she could carry it without breaking. She drove back to Ridgemont as evening fell, the land stretching endlessly on either side of the highway. Corn ready for harvest. Soybeans turning gold. The eternal cycle of growth and death and renewal that defined everything rural, everything rooted, everything that mattered beyond individual lives. Her farm appeared in the distance, lights glowing warm in the gathering darkness. Home, she realized with quiet certainty. Not the place she'd been born, but the place she'd chosen. The place she'd built with decisions and sacrifice and acceptance of who she really was beneath the names and identities and roles. Victor's car sat in the drive, which meant he'd come early for their quarterly review. But when she entered the house, she found him in the kitchen, cooking, which was so unexpected she stopped and stared. "Thought you might be hungry," he said without turning around. "Long drive, emotional day. Food helps. How did you know I went to Millfield?" "Marco keeps track. And I know what today is." He plated pasta with the efficiency of someone who'd learned to cook out of necessity. "Your father's death anniversary. Seemed likely you'd want to visit." They ate in comfortable silence, the kind that came from years of knowing someone in ways that transcended words. After, they sat on the porch, watching stars emerge as the sky darkened completely. "Do you ever regret it?" Claire asked. "Building the life you have. The violence, the danger, the weight of it all." Victor considered the question seriously. "Every day. And never. Both are true simultaneously." He glanced at her. "Do you regret your choices?" "Same answer." "Then we're exactly where we're meant to be. Complicated, conflicted, and somehow content despite everything." Claire thought about her father, working fields while hiding evidence of crimes. About her mother, dying slowly while the land kept living. About 3 generations of Murphys who'd tried to build something lasting and mostly succeeded, even when it hurt. She thought about the store burning and rising again. About land that remembered everything but judged nothing. About the way legacy wasn't what you inherited but what you chose to carry forward. The corn rustled in the night breeze, ready for harvest. Tomorrow she'd start cutting, the same work her ancestors had done, the same work someone would do long after she was gone. The land would outlast them all, patient and eternal, keeping its secrets and growing its crops and breathing through seasons without end. In Millfield, Murphy's General Store served customers under new management but old traditions. In Ridgemont, fields stretched furrow under stars that had seen everything and forgotten nothing. And somewhere between, Claire Murphy, who called herself Sarah Chen and had learned to live in the space between identities, had finally found the thing her father had died trying to give her. Not freedom from consequences, but the strength to live with them. Not escape from inheritance, but the wisdom to transform it. Not peace, exactly, but something better. Purpose. Roots that went deep enough to weather any storm. The land breathed. The stars turned. The harvest waited. And she was ready. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.